press conference was called to talk about the spring statement tomorrow and the state of the UK economy, but there are one or two rather important international and indeed national issues that I want to address right at the very beginning. Our policy towards Iran has been wrong ever since 2015, and I've said so consistently over the years. The JCPOA deal, so approved of by President Obama, the European Union, and subsequently not just the Foreign Office but Boris Johnson, has been an act of appeasement that has freed up tens of billions of dollars, much of which has been used by the Iranian regime to back terrorist organisations right across the world. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, just a few to name. There are, of course, big risks with the American actions and Israeli actions that were taken over the course of the weekend, but equally enormous risks in doing nothing, in allowing Iran to go on, funding these extremist terrorist organisations, attacking shipping, and doing everything they can to build a nuclear bomb. I do believe the American president and the Israelis are right in what they're doing, and I find the actions of our Prime Minister, or the inactions, perhaps I should say, of our Prime Minister, frankly pathetic. I think to have said to the Americans that they could not use UK bases or Diego Garcia to carry out any of their missions is something that the President has responded to already by saying that he's deeply disappointed. I suspect that, for once from Trump, is actually a mild understatement. And I do believe that Starmer's actions don't just threaten the special relationship, but probably he has posed, or did pose, a major threat to NATO. To watch television yesterday morning to see John Healey was just unbelievable. Sticking to this vague concept of international law, unable to say whether the actions that had been taken were right, and then when he was told that 2 missiles had been fired at the RAF base on Cyprus, he said he thought it wasn't deliberate. Well, now it's all too real, as evacuation notices have gone out on that base over the course of the last hour. I hope and pray that a better alternative comes for Iran and the rather wonderful Persian people, but I suspect that it won't be straightforward or easy. There is at least one offer on the table, which is that of a constitutional monarchy. We'll see, ultimately, whether that's what the people of Iran want. I must also follow up from the by-election in Greater Manchester last week. Massive thanks from me to Democracy Volunteers, a thoroughly credible organisation run by well-known people, because I've been talking about this very openly since 2015. The mass harvesting of postal ballots, where in many cases, when doors are knocked on, people say they never saw the postal ballot themselves, even in the first place. And so they've done us a huge favour by talking about this practice of family voting, of people going in groups into the polling booth and effectively being told where to put that vote. 62% of polling stations in that constituency saw witnesses see family voting. If that's the pressure exerted in the polling booth, you can only imagine what other pressures there will be. I was also shocked to learn of the extent to which Commonwealth voting had gone. That basically all you have to do is to prove that you usually reside somewhere to be able to vote in an election. The fact you've got a passport from Pakistan doesn't seem to matter. The fact you've only been in the country a couple of years doesn't seem to matter. The fact you can't speak a word of English doesn't seem to matter. And I've now learned that Nick Dubois, who was the Conservative MP for North London, discovered in 2011 that there were 300 asylum seekers in Enfield alone who'd been put on the electoral register. So rather than just me complaining about this for years and being told that it was sour grapes, I think we are going to have a very big, open, honest debate about this. I certainly believe, ahead of May the 7th, that every single area that has elections needs to think very hard about who is on their register. I certainly believe that the postal voting register, as it currently stands, ought to be scrapped. And I think we should go back to the way that it was. You can get a proxy vote, you can get a postal vote, but you have to apply for it and you have to have a good reason. And how interesting that in France, and I very rarely quote France as being a country we should copy on anything, but in France you have to turn up and you have to vote in the privacy of the polling booth and prove your identity and be on the register. And French election results come incredibly quickly, and I can't think of one that's ever led to the subject of a row in terms of the integrity of the elections. So they're just a few of my thoughts on that. I'll be outlining some more of this at Westminster Hall later on this evening. Not only is Britain broken, not only is our politics broken, but our democratic system is broken too. And Reform will fight for change, just as we fought to get the voting rights back for 4.6 million people who will now have the vote on May the 7th against the connivance of the other parties, all of them actually, Labour, Conservative and the Liberal Democrats.